Hi, welcome to The Kiosk Presents, and today we have a very special guest. We'll be talking about On the Case with Paula Zahn, returning for the 6th season on the Investigation Discovery Network. Now, Paula has 30 years of experience in journalism with such areas as ABC, CBS, Fox, and CNN, and I'm very excited to have you here today. How are you, Paula?
Well, I'm delighted that you invited me.
It's nice to have you. I do understand, I'm going to get this out of the way very quickly, that you lived in the Naperville, Illinois area.
I did. I grew up there.
I was just there yesterday.
You were? Isn't it a great city?
It really is. It's a wonderful place to live.
It's changed a lot. When I moved there were only 15,000 people, and I think today, the whole area is over 100,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it's huge. But I just wanted to put that little shout out to Naperville and to say hi to you in that regard.
Yeah, I still consider it home. When you spend that many years there and have a lot of friends that you went to high school with, it still calls me back.
Absolutely. Well, we're in the Buffalo area now, and we're going to be talking about your show. I understand that it has a variety of types of stories about crime victims, a combination of storytelling and investigative journalism? Exactly.
Basically, every week we look at an individual story, a murder case that's been adjudicated, and we basically take the audience on a journey about, starting with the crime and then telling the story through the eyes of prosecutors, defense attorneys, investigators, and family members. And each week, as you can imagine, the crimes vary. But I think the one thing all the stories have in common is that they are incredibly dramatic. There's often contradictory evidence. Many cases go unsolved for many decades, and we bear down very deep on facts. And we're looking for the truth. We're also looking to shine a light on the justice system, and also make sure that we are all as vigilant as we can be when it comes to vulnerability when we're in situations when we're alone. So
right.
we try to tackle all of that.
Right. I think that's the key, the vulnerability of people who don't know what happened maybe to loved ones or something, something that serious.
Right. And there's nothing more heartbreaking than hearing a bereaved parent say, you know what? My daughter was 22 years old. She'd always driven by herself. If she just hadn't, because she was tired, hadn't stopped at that convenience store at midnight. We're all in situations where we end up being alone, but we have to be, I think these families make us be extra careful,
right.
Particularly in reminding our children about situations they can be extremely vulnerable in. And that's not to blame the victim. No one ever should be prey, but I think law enforcement always tells me it never hurts to spread that message every week too.
Right, it gets the message out to always be vigilant and see your surroundings and be aware of them. You had one story, from what I understand, one of the episodes of a teenager who was found in a cemetery.
Oh, that was such a horrible story.
Oh,
and
dear.
It was one of those situations where it was a young kid who was really trying to get her life together after a lot of challenges with her family. And, typical story of someone being unfortunately a typical story at a bus stop and alone, and someone essentially kidnapped her. And the story has a lot more facts that make it quite mysterious. But once again, a young woman alone, sometimes a young man alone, they can be extremely vulnerable. But that case took decades to solve.
But the positive side of it is that it was solved.
Exactly. And
right.
I think that what I found from now in season 6, from talking to all these families, they would prefer not have to wait 50 years to have a case solved, but it is extremely comforting to them to finally find out who killed their loved one. They sometimes don't ever understand what the motive was, but also finding a loved one's body is critically important to these families as they go through their process of grief. And I'm just amazed by the heroism of some of these families, because they take on the legal system in some cases where they're told, by a sheriff's deputy in a small town, don't look any further than this, where they go out and hire their own private investigators that are bringing information to the police department, and sometimes, folks don't want to be one-upped by someone outside the department, and you see that happen all the time. So these families are amazingly strong and courageous to not only have to deal with their grief, but take on sometimes a very complicated and unfriendly system.
Right. Well, what your show does is help bring them closure.
Well, you know, that closure word is such a, and I'm not in any way insulting you for using it, because we use that word so freely these days, but most families will tell me, look, there's never closure. Right. But you know, we did want some answers, and this will help us, you know, heal, but we'll forever have this void in our life that you know, there's no way to steer around.
Right. So this is both a challenging aspect, but also has some positiveness to it in terms of the show. Yeah,
I think that I have met some amazing people with more integrity than you can imagine, people of limited means who you know, once again, take on a system that sometimes is stacked against them, and you know, they're fighting for their loved ones. And when someone's fighting for their loved ones, they're fierce, and right. I'm always amazed by their focus and their determination and how brave they are.
Now, speaking of focus, just off to another subject for just a second. You play the cello. That takes a lot of focus.
Oh, it does. And see these calluses on these fingers? I'm practicing now for a performance. I'm working on something I'm going to be doing in the fall. So I still practice, and had some extraordinary opportunities to play in Carnegie Hall recently and Alice Tully Hall at Lincoln Center. It's still very much a part of my life, and I don't think I'll ever be playing professionally, but do have some wonderful opportunities to make music with some very talented ensembles.
Well, you never know. Never say never.
Yeah, you know, I love it, and it's been, you know, I started when I was 5 years old, and it still brings me a lot of peace. So I still practice and perform.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much, Paula Zahn, for joining us. And again, we're talking about On the Case with Paula Zahn, returning for its 6th season on the Investigation Discovery Network. And thanks for being with us on The Kiosk Presents.
And thanks for your interest in what I'm doing. I appreciate it.
No problem. Take care.
You too.